Hey, what's going on, everybody? Mike here with Run Dad Run podcast. Getting ready to wrap up week 8 and talk about week 9. Very exciting that we're getting this close to the race. It is almost October, and the race, as you know, is October 24th. And by the race, of course, we're talking about the Lighthouse Loop Half Marathon. As I've discussed before, I'm training using the Hal Higdon Novice 2 Half Marathon plan, and something doesn't feel right. I know what it is. Hold on. Ha ha! That feels a lot better. Now, don't think I'm a front runner, all right? For those of you who know me, especially my friends back in New Jersey, I've been a Chicago Bears fan since the original front runners in 1985. I heard about this guy named The Fridge, and as a little 6-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever I was at the time, I fell in love. I needed to know more about the team. And of course, that team, you had Walter Payton, you had Sweetness, you had Jim McMahon, a character in and of himself, Mike Singletary, all these characters on that team, Mike Ditka, the coach, and I fell in love. So don't think that this is just because they're 3-0 to start this season. Now, they're not all good wins, pretty, and you're going to talk about how perfectly executed those wins are. But winning in the NFL and starting your season 3-0, if it was easy, everyone would do it every year. But it's not, and the Bears have done it. So I will take it. Any year they can start 3-0, I will take it. So I'm very excited. Got to watch the game this week. It was on local channel, thankfully. They were playing the Atlanta Falcons, and I got to watch it locally here in the Daytona Beach area off of the Orlando feed on Fox. So very exciting. I just want to give you my quick perspective on Mitchell Trubisky. It is nearly impossible to dislike Mitchell Trubisky. The way he holds himself, the way he talks, the way he gives himself to the media. Both he and the team could have kept him from stepping in front of the media this Sunday after being benched in the third quarter for Nick Foles. They easily could have said, you know what, you don't have to do this, or we won't let you do this. There's no need to do this. But they made him available, and he answered the tough questions, and he held himself the way he has held himself through the entire time I've gotten to watch him since day one. And in fact, today, a memory came up from 3 years ago when they had Mike Glennon, and a Facebook thing popped up to say, instead of just handing the ball off to run out the game, why don't you put the kid in? And that was 3 years ago. And here we are almost, to the day that I'm, for the Chicago Bears, happy that he's being sat because he just hasn't developed the way they hoped. Character-wise, he's the right pick. Skill-wise, they wanted to develop a guy, and I think to develop him, he was a project, and I don't think they had the right tools. Looking back, thinking about what they could have done at the time, they dropped Cutler, and they brought in Mike Glennon, and we all know how that ended up, and they drafted Mitchell Trubisky. Knowing what we know now, had they kept Cutler, I believe he had another year on his contract, and drafted Mitchell Trubisky, and maybe extended Cutler for another year or two, believe me, I was done with Cutler. And most of Chicago fans were done with Cutler. But knowing what we know now, the team probably would have been better off had they stuck with Cutler and drafted Trubisky and truly, developed him. But anyway, like I started, I'm glad that Nick Foles came in yesterday and made some outstanding plays. He made throws that Mitchell Trubisky missed in the first half, and throws that traditionally Mitchell Trubisky hasn't been able to make. Changing plays at the call, commanding an offense that this is week 3, so I think he's familiar with it because he's been in similar offenses. But the Chicago Matt Nagy iteration of it, he's been around for less than 2 months. And he came in and showed total control of it, read the defense, making changes on the fly, things that Mitchell Trubisky just has not grasped. So again, I love Trubisky. It's nearly impossible to dislike him as a human being, and he says all the right things. He means all the right things. He's a hard worker. So it's tough to see a good high character guy like that get benched. Thankfully, Nick Foles is another high character guy, and the Chicago Bears hopefully are in good hands on the offense and they start getting that spark that they need. But anyway, I'm excited. I'm a Chicago Bears fan. 3-0 for the first time I can remember. I think it goes back to 2013 and 2010 before that. So I'm excited. But you guys aren't here for the Chicago Bears talk. So enjoy it while we can, right? All right. Now that we got that out of our systems, right? No, I appreciate you letting me do that from time to time. So obviously it's the Run Dad Run podcast. We're here to talk about running. So we're going to recap week 8 and look forward to week 9. And again, schedules happen. And what I have to be careful about is allowing, I've mentioned this in previous videos, I have to be careful of allowing multiple weeks to stack up on me and continue to push back. So obviously the rest days are there for a reason. They're important. You can hear the thunder and lightning today. Thankfully today is Monday. It's a rest day, so I'm not having to run out in this today. But with career, with my wife's career, with kids, with virtual school, things happen and things get pushed around a little bit. So on the schedule, I've been really lucky. I've been really good. I haven't missed any runs as far as actually missing them for the week. I've been able to push them, and I think the biggest was like a 2-day push. This week only had a 1-day push. Was able to get everything I needed to get done within the week except for the 60-day cross training. So that got bumped again this week. And I have to be careful of that. I started saying this. I have to be careful to not miss the cross training days. They're very important to keep the muscles loose, keep the same muscles being moved in different ways. Running is very forward, obviously. There's not a lot of lateral. So some of those lateral supporting muscles can be missed. So it's important the way, and again, I'm speaking from a novice perspective, from the things that I've read and things that much more experienced people have told me. Of the things that if I'm going to miss during the week, I feel like the cross training is the one to miss. However, I don't want to continuously and consistently miss it for purposes of those supporting muscles. You don't want to expose a weakness or create a weakness and then have that create issues elsewhere along the kinetic chain. So thankfully it's only 2 of the last 3 weeks I've missed it. So it's back on track today. So I even forget which day it was. I had the 60, so this is week 8. I had the 60-minute cross train rest day, 3-mile run, 5-mile pace, 3-mile run, rest day, and 10-mile run. I think it was Wednesday that things got pushed back. It was the 5-mile pace run that got pushed to Thursday, and then the Thursday run pushed to Friday. And then Saturday, my wife had a thing at school that she had to do. So Saturday, she was gone all day, and I was with the boys. So the long run Saturday got pushed to Sunday. So essentially, the whole second half of the week just got slid over. And that's, that is what it is. So Sunday, cross training day, I was going to try and do it Saturday. And, by the time my wife got home, I had plans to go watch the UFC fights at a friend's house. So it just doesn't happen, and that's fine. That I just don't want that to be every week that I miss that cross training or I miss one type of run. The other thing was one of the days this week Jacob has gotten back into riding his bike. He was a little bit nervous about it, and I had asked him, I guess earlier in the summer, if maybe some knee pads and elbow pads and a new helmet that fit his head a little bit better would make him feel a little bit more confident. And he said, yeah, I'd like to try that. So we got him, and I think he tried it once, and then it's like blazing hot. And, you know, to gear up and go outside, you know, you're out there for like 15 minutes. It's not really worth it. So the weather's been a little bit nicer, and what we've been doing for recess during virtual school is we eat a sandwich, jump in the pool, or we eat a sandwich, go out in the yard. And so the other day it was a little bit cooler. We geared him up real quick and we went for a bike ride. And now he's fallen back in love with riding the bike. So I had a 3-mile run on Friday where my wife also had an after school thing. So before we went and picked up Cooper, I went for a ride with him or a run while he did his bike. So because of our neighborhood, the way it works, 2 laps is 2.5 miles. And to start another one, we didn't really have enough time because we were going to jump in the pool real quick before we had to be back logged on for school. So I know that's a lot of inside information you may not really know, or may not need to know or care about, but I felt 2.5 miles instead of the 3 miles scheduled is better than not doing it at all, because my wife wasn't going to be home. She had to work the football game. She wasn't going to be home till 11 p.m. So it was either 2.5 miles or 0. So obviously 2.5 on those middle of the week runs is much better than 0. So it's doing little things like that even in the instructions in Hal Higdon's, you know, on the website, do what you can. You know, if you miss something, don't worry about making up, you know, do this instead of that and move it around to see what works for you. And I tend to try and stick more to the plan because I feel like I don't have the experience to really know what's most important, and I don't have that higher foundation mileage under my belt where I can say that, you know, I'm doing it right, wrong, or otherwise. I really try to stick to the plan because that's coming from someone with tremendous knowledge versus someone with near 0 knowledge, comparatively speaking. So I try to stick to the plan as much as possible. But little tweaks and misses, I understand, you know, the designer of the plan is okay with it, and obviously I need to be okay with it. You know, my life demands it. So it was a good week. The 5-mile pace was a little bit harder after last week saying the weather has been so nice. It got a little bit hot again, that cool front, whatever it was, I guess because of the storms pushing everything around. That cool front disappeared, and it got hot in Florida again. So not terrible, but again, like, you know, 84 degrees, 79% humidity, feels like of 93. So that's what it was yesterday for my 10-miler. So feels like of 93, and most of that is because of the humidity. So we'll get to that run specifically in a few minutes, but same thing with the 5-mile pace. It was pretty good, a little bit harder, but again, the recovery was pretty good. I didn't feel trashed the rest of the week. The 2.5 miles the next day was pretty good with Jacob riding his bike and me running, and of course that I was a little bit quicker than I wanted to be because I was trying to keep up with Jake on his bike. So it was a little bit faster than what I'd normally like to run during the middle of the week runs, but it felt okay. It didn't feel like I was pushing myself too much. I just, you know, looked down at one point. It was like 8.5 minute pace. I was like, oh geez, that's like a minute faster than I really need it to be. But again, 2.5 miles, not the end of the world. So that really standard intro to the week. The pace was good. The pace run was good, and it felt comfortable at that 5-mile distance. So then we had the big 10-mile run. So that was done yesterday on Sunday, and like I said, it was a feels like of 93. When I first woke up, it was like really sunny out, and kind of pushed it off and decided to watch the Bears game. Like I said, thankfully it was on here locally on the Fox affiliate, and by the time the game was over, there was a slight cloud cover, and I was like, oh, home run, perfect. So I got out the door. So the feels like it was still, you know, it was still warm and humid, but it wasn't with sun. So thankfully that part was taken out of the equation. And I'll tell you, it was one of those runs though where I did similar to the run I did last week, where I ran out towards the bridge I was describing and ran down a side street there to get to 4 miles, and then ran back. And where did I go from there? Oh, so I came back to the house because I was going to cut through, but I wanted to quit like, I don't know, maybe 3.5 miles into the run. My brain was like, oh, this is cool, this is fun, stop. So I plugged along. I came back to the house. I was almost out of my drink, my fueling drink. And so I wanted to get more liquids in me because I was pouring it out as I've described. So I came into the house. I initially called ahead and said, hey, you know, if Jacob wants to do the last 2 miles on the bike with me, I'll be there in about 4 minutes. And Darlene said she was getting lightning alerts, and I hadn't seen any lightning yet. So that was kind of like news to me. I was like, all right, fine. I'm going to be in the house in like 4 or 5 minutes. Came back, dropped everything, dropped my phone, dropped my headphones, my hat, my sunglasses, my armband, my shirt, everything except for my shoes, my socks, and my pants, and my water jug. I refilled my water jug and right back out the door. And the last 2 miles were pretty tough. Thankfully, though, as per the program, my pace is 8 minutes per mile for the race. That's my race pace. And for these longer runs, the plan describes 30 to 90 seconds slower than half marathon pace. And every single mile was within that actually 1 minute gap. So my fastest mile, I think, was 8:25, and my slowest mile was 9:27. So, and they weren't very good splits, but between, I think the last 2 miles were the only ones over 9 minutes a mile. I think the slowest was 8:55 before that. Got back to the house, like I said, dumped everything, grabbed my water, and headed back out the door, and struggled to get those last 2 miles in. But I got it, and there was lightning. I could see my neighborhood a couple miles away. There was lightning. Sat down on the front grass to start stretching, and there was a flash that like lit up the whole area. So I was like, all right, going in the backyard under the patio. I'm not sitting out here next to 3 palm trees in a lightning storm. So it was a tough run. It was a really tough run. It was a mental run though. And that's, like I've described, that's one of those things that I really enjoy about running, is that mental struggle, that pushing yourself, saying just one foot in front of the other. You get to a point where you're like, oh, there's 4 miles left. I've run 4 miles 100 times. And then you get to the point where you're like, oh, there's 3 miles left. That's less than a 5K. All right, we can do this. It's less than 27 minutes left. Get back to the house and drop my stuff. I'm like, 2 miles. Come on. It's like 16 to 17 minutes, maybe more, maybe 18 minutes, whatever. Doesn't, just keep plugging along. Come on, you got it. Then you get down to 1 mile left. You're like, oh man, 8 to 9 minutes left. This is a piece of cake, no problem. And you're just pushing. Half a mile left. Oh, less than 5 minutes. This is nothing. You can do anything for 5 minutes. And just that constant battle where you're like, I want to stop, I need to stop, I can't go on, and you're just like, a little bit further. Just keep going a little bit further and see how you feel. And you do it. And 10 steps further. See how it feels in 10 steps. You can make it 10 more steps. And those little things that you just tell yourself where you're like, just pushing, and you're listening to your body, but you're pushing because your body's telling you it's hurt, but you're not injured. Pain is telling you to stop, but it's not pain because of an injury. It's pain because of it's uncomfortable, and that's that mental part of it. Knowing the difference and fighting that urge. Ooh, there was some lightning there. Fighting that urge to quit is, man, it's got to make you stronger in every aspect of your life. I feel that it must. I don't know that you necessarily reap the benefits, or that they're obvious to you what benefits you get from it in other aspects of your life, but certainly it helps you do other things that are less comfortable. There are things that you can do, like 3 days a week I go out and do something my body tells me it doesn't want to do, I can get through this, So I really appreciate you guys, again, clicking on the videos, watching, and sharing your comments and your motivation. It really, really, really helps me stay motivated by sharing this with you guys. I'm going to give you a real quick rundown of next week. We're going long on this video already. So next week we got a little bit of a mix up this week. A little bit of a mix in the plan. So it's the standard throughout most of it. Have the 60-minute cross training day, the rest day on Monday, today. So the 60-minute cross I skipped, obviously. Rest day today, 3-mile run Tuesday, 5-mile run Wednesday, 3-mile run Thursday, rest day on Friday, and then this Friday is a 10K race. So I haven't signed up for any 10K races, so I'm going to do like a little faux race. Probably set it up here, maybe go down to the beach or something like that. Do it down there, just maybe get some practice on the course. I think what I might do for that is go to where the course for the half marathon ends and maybe just go 6 miles out, because I've said this before, for the Lighthouse Loop half marathon, the last mile of it is over the Dunlawton Causeway. So I got to get used to running that causeway again. And during the quote unquote race, which isn't really a race, it's just going to be me and whoever else shows up to run it, the causeway is not going to be closed off. So unless they get some permits between now and then to close it off just for anyone who shows up, doubtful. But I'm going to have to run around and instead of just turning on the street and going over where the cars normally go, I'm going to have to run and go up the stairs and go across and then cross the street. So I got to at least get used to kind of navigating that. So that's probably what I'll do this Saturday for the 10K race. I'll just do a 6-mile run at 10K pace and do it on part of the course so I get used to running that causeway again. So it's amazing. I'm looking at this now like 4 weeks left. There's only 4 weeks left. Got 10K race this week, 11-mile next week, 12-mile the week after, and half marathon. So you guys have been riding with me a while. I appreciate it. I really do. 8 weeks down, 4 to go. And I really appreciate you sticking with me. We're going to get it done. One way or another, we're going to get it done. So love you guys. Appreciate it. See ya.